Hello, I'm Mimi, and in 2023, I earned a full-time salary by doing what I love, which is making art and helping other people make art. But that's not very useful information for most people. What is much more useful to know is how long did it take for me to actually make a comfortable living as an artist and content creator, and how do I actually make money? I'm getting started on my first illustration of the year, so let me tell you the financial story of my small business while I draw, because I'd much rather show you that while we talk about numbers than have this video be an Excel spreadsheet. So if you didn't already know, I started developing my art skills in 2020 because I really wanted to make a living making art in some way. So while the world was in lockdown, I decided that I would do everything I could to become a professional illustrator and also make content about my journey so that I could help others do the same. Now it's the start of 2024, 4 years later. I've illustrated 4 published picture books. I have a great community of over 100,000 followers on both Instagram and YouTube separately, and I somehow managed to make the dream actually work. It's taken me nearly 450 illustrations to get here, not including the 168 pages of picture books, plus over 100 YouTube videos and 477 Patreon posts. So this will not be a get-rich-quick story, but it is my story and it's a true story. So hopefully it gives you a realistic and honest insight into what it's like to build a small art and content business like mine. So let's get into the juicy bit and start with my earnings from 2023 last year, which was my most financially successful year yet, and then we can go back to the beginning to see how I built up to that. A quick note, all the figures in this video will be in Australian dollars because I'm Australian and so is my business, and I'll be talking about total earnings, so I still have to pay tax on all these figures, plus I pay my partner Dan for video editing, and I have some other general business expenses that come out of the earnings as well. So here's my monthly earnings graph for 2023. In total, my business earned 144,623 Australian dollars, which is my biggest year yet by a long way. The year started strong in January, had a few ups and downs, and then had a strong final quarter. A lot of these peaks are from picture book advance payments, which come in lump sums every few months, and because I always seem to have more than one book in the pipeline at once, there's been an advance payment every other month or so. I had my biggest month in October with $19,215 in earnings, and my smallest month in April when I was traveling with $7,348 in earnings, which is still a lot of money to me. So let's take a look at how this income is broken down. YouTube videos earned me the highest portion of my income at about 33%, which includes AdSense and also sponsorship payments. Following that was Patreon at 28.3% of my income for the year, and then all of my shop sales, mostly from Etsy, at 19.5%. Then I had all of my paid illustration commissions, including picture books, which was 16.2% of my income. I made my first short course for Skillshare at the end of September, which earned 2.1% of the income. And finally, everything from affiliate marketing made up the last 0.6%. So as you can see, I don't make the majority of my income from selling my art directly, but you don't have to sell your art directly to make a living from creating art every day. I illustrate children's picture books, but aside from that, I don't really sell my art in a traditional way, and yet I still get to spend so much of my time illustrating. I spend a lot of time making art and tutorials for my Patreon community. I make art for Instagram, which increases traffic to my Etsy shop. The only time that I'm not making some kind of art is if I'm making a video. So there are lots of ways that you can make a living online as an artist. Selling your art directly is one of them, but you can also sell other products or services that still allow you to spend most of your time drawing or illustrating in some form. I have a whole video class to help you identify your own path towards earning an income with your art that you can watch on Skillshare, who are the sponsor of this video. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives with lots of great classes on topics like illustration, productivity, and building an art career. Their classes are a really great way to invest in yourself this year and have helped me so much with my own journey, and I especially like their learning pathways that bring handpicked classes together in an order that helps you learn a particular topic, like this one called Procreate Basics: Get Started with Digital Illustration. It takes the overwhelm out of trying to find the right class and gives you more time to learn digital illustration skills in Procreate. You can take my Skillshare class and this learning pathway for free today because the first 500 people to use my link will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. To help you get the maximum benefit of your free trial, here are some other learning pathways that I think are really great as well. Thanks so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to the numbers. So even after I pay all of my business expenses and taxes for 2023, I still met the average Australian full-time salary, which according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics is around $1,500 per week for an Australian woman working full-time, or that's about $78,000 per year. Of course, everyone has different living costs and salary expectations, but for me, that is plenty of money to be able to do everything that I want to do. But I started working towards those numbers in 2020, so let's go back to the beginning and see how long it took to build the different income streams over the past few years. In 2020, I was working as a freelance graphic designer, but with the downturn in work during the pandemic lockdowns, I took the opportunity to commit myself to learning illustration by practicing every weekday. I needed to build an art habit if I wanted to improve, and posting on Instagram gave me some accountability and somewhere to put my illustrations. So I spent most of the year building my audience by posting on Instagram every weekday. I did also start my YouTube channel, but it was really very basic, and I also wrote some blog posts on my website as well. In December, I was asked to illustrate a pet portrait as a paid commission, and I charged them $40 to do it, and that is the total of how much I earned in 2020, which makes for a very simple pie chart. In 2021, I started offering more portrait commissions, and that was my first reliable income stream while I was starting up my Patreon in around February-March. I had my first picture book advance payment come in June when I started working on my first illustrated children's book, and that invoice was a big boost. My main focus for the year was building up diverse income streams, so I kept working on my Patreon community. In July, I opened my Etsy shop, and then in October, this YouTube channel was monetized. In total, I earned $18,278 in 2021, and here's how that was broken down across the different income streams. Between portrait commissions and picture book illustrations, my paid illustrations earned me the highest percentage of my income, but Patreon actually wasn't too far behind. Then in 2022, I really focused on growing all of my income streams by providing lots of value in both the products I was selling as well as the marketing I was doing on social media. My first ever YouTube video sponsorship was in March, and every month after that I had a sponsored video, which really helped to boost my income. And I had a few big picture book invoices again throughout the year, which is where you see these big spikes. I steadily grew on Patreon throughout the year, and then in November I released my first digital brush pack, which helped increase my Etsy sales. So in 2022 I earned a total of $66,778, And again, here's a breakdown of that by income streams. Having multiple income streams takes a lot of work, but this is the year that I started to see that work really paying off with a strong income coming from a few different places. Remember though that this total figure is before I pay my expenses and my taxes, so although it was enough to live off if I kept my living costs down, it wasn't quite a full Australian salary yet. And that's why 2023 was an important year for me, because after 3 years of putting everything I had into this little business, I started earning the equivalent of a full-time salary. A year after I had started drawing every day, I was earning a few $100s a month. A year after that, I was earning a couple of $1,000s a month. And a year after that, I was earning around $10,000 a month. It's really scary to try and build something from scratch. There's a lot to learn along the way, and there's no guarantee that it will even work out. But I wanted to make this video to say that if I can start drawing silly pencil drawings in my sketchbook and eventually make art into a full-time job for myself, then maybe it can work for you too. I'm really lucky because I had the time to commit an hour or so to illustrating every weekday, and once I did start earning a bit of money, I could take the risk of not having a stable full-time job because I don't have a mortgage or any dependents, and I know that not everybody is in the same position. But if you're someone who does have a bit of free time every day and you're thinking of making an income as an artist, you probably want to know what you should get started with. Like I said in the beginning, I can only share my own experience, so let's have a look at the numbers to see which income stream of mine was the easiest to get started with, which one has earned me the most overall, and which one is the most reliable, and that might help give you some ideas. First, the easiest income stream to get started with was custom commissions, because I could do the work and get paid for it straight away. Obviously, it still takes work to find customers, and you might have to spend a while practicing your art skills like I did, but the first steady income I made was by making custom portraits for people on the internet. You don't need to do too much setup to sell commissions. You can take inquiries via DMs if your customers are finding you on social media, but unfortunately there are a few scams out there, so you could consider doing a little extra setup to take payments through an online shop like Etsy just for some safety. After I made my first commission, I used that to advertise my art services and was making a few $100s a month from it for several months while I was offering personal commissions. I only really stopped because I was asked to illustrate a picture book, and I decided to switch to that instead. So next, the income stream that has earned me the most overall is YouTube, which has earned me $75,103 in total, including AdSense revenue and paid sponsorships. I think YouTube at times has taken the most amount of work, and it took quite a long time before I started earning anything at all from it, but over the course of a few years it has paid off. It also is where I can provide a lot of value to people and grow my audience, which helps other income streams like Etsy and Patreon, so the actual income benefit from YouTube is probably higher than that figure. So I don't actually make most of my income from selling my art directly like I mentioned earlier, but I do still get to spend a lot of time making art for my content. I don't think that means that I'm not an art business though. I illustrate picture books part-time, I make art tutorials, and I draw for fun every week. But because I want to share my skills with my community, it means that sometimes I make more money from content rather than the art itself. That's partly because content is sort of a semi-passive income, because once you've made something, it can continue to make money for a long time. Whereas illustrating picture books or commissions is active income, where generally I'm trading my hours for money. Now that my YouTube channel has been rolling along for a few years, it earns more money than I could earn from a picture book, but in 2021 I earned more money from illustrating than anything else. So lastly, the income stream that I think is the most reliable is definitely Patreon for me. The growth of my monthly Patreon revenue is really quite steady, Naturally, there are some higher months and lower months like with anything, but overall it's really quite consistent. Just like with YouTube, it takes a lot of work to maintain my Patreon, but that's mostly because of what I choose to put on there. I want it to be valuable both to new patrons who join and current patrons who stay each month, so I post about 10 or 11 things there every month, including a video lesson, I host an illustration club, I usually post a step-by-step drawing guide, a newsletter, all sorts of things. So obviously those things do take quite a bit of time, but it's so worth it to be able to share with my community, and it's a really steady income stream with the way that I currently have it set up. I will say with Patreon that from everything I've seen online, you need to have either a really engaged audience or quite a large audience. The averages I've seen are usually that you'll convert about 1 patron for every 1,000 followers you have across social media. This might be higher if you have a niche but really engaged audience, and it depends on what it is you're offering your patrons, but it might help give you a starting point if you're considering when to start your own Patreon. I started mine when I had around 10,000 Instagram followers, if that's any help, and I made $99 my first month, and it grew by about $100 a month for a while. But keep in mind, I was also one of my own patrons, so not all of that is even from paying customers. So my illustration is pretty much finished, and that's about all the numbers I can handle for one day. I hope you found these figures helpful for your own art business journey, and join me on Patreon if you'd like access to my library of art lessons and my monthly illustration club. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!